Joining us now is Liz Harrington, the national spokesperson for the Republican National Committee. Liz, over the past couple of weeks, we've been told about how successful New York Governor Andrew Cuomo has been in this effort to combat the coronavirus pandemic. We do see that New York is now flattening the curve, but we also see the number of deaths that are resulting in the state, largely due to that situation taking place at nursing homes. Why has he been viewed as a heroic figure as of recently?
Well, because he's a Democrat in New York, which is the media bubble. It's the media epicenter, if you will. And he's been given a pass by really troubling and horrible decision making that he's had since March. He only yesterday reversed that decision about sending positive coronavirus patients back into nursing homes. He let that stand for weeks, even after the data was coming in that showed the vast majority of the deaths were coming for the senior population in New York. This was the vulnerable population. That's the one thing we were really certain about this virus from early on, how vulnerable our older populations were. And to make that decision and then feign ignorance about it when he was asked in the media, and then weeks, he had it in place for several more weeks, and he only just now reversed that decision. I think the more people learn about this, the more the public will be outraged, and his approval will go way down, and regardless of how the media wants to try to cover for him just because he's a Democrat.
And I think a big important point to point out in all of this isn't the fact that we're looking back on this with the luxury of hindsight, like so many issues do. At the time, industry leaders were telling him that this is a move that will be proved to be fatal. The AARP was one of them. We just showed the other ones as well, the American Healthcare Association, all voicing their concerns about this very policy. And despite those concerns, Governor Cuomo, as well as those other governors that I was naming before, moved forward with this situation. And now we see that 1/3 of the total deaths in the country are taking place at nursing homes, the very populations that we were talking about. And we played that clip of him going on his brother's show talking about how he's a quick candidate to become president. And meanwhile, you look at the state of Florida, and I mean, we don't have to tell our viewers about how hard the media was going after Governor Ron DeSantis. And that actually looks like it's a situation that they have under control, at least for the time being. What does that tell you about the disparaging different coverage of Ron DeSantis?
It's media bias. It's a double standard. And even today, they're going after the Republican governor and falsely accusing him of hiding information. Look at the numbers in New York City that they've had to revise upward. And when Governor DeSantis in Florida, he actually made a push for PPE directly into nursing homes, directly there for the vulnerable population to get that ramped up testing. And it's paid off. You can just see the numbers. They bear out for themselves. And it's very interesting to see the Democrat governor, Andrew Cuomo, in New York taking a victory lap of sorts and saying no one would have believed that we would have had this under control, when just last week it was reported in the New York Times, of all places, that 60 to 65% of all the cases throughout the rest of the country, where he's now saying, look at all these other states, they're going on the upward trend. Well, those all cases came from New York City and New York State. So he's taking a victory lap when not taking own accountability for his state and their role in infecting the rest of the country.
And it's one of those things where I hate to politicize this issue, but everyone else is at this point. I mean, if you're a Republican governor in a lot of these places, as we were saying about Ron DeSantis, you're coming under scrutiny. And then, for example, we could look at a state like Michigan, which has a very bad outbreak right now, but Gretchen Whitmer is once again being considered as a VP nominee for the Vice President Joe Biden and his campaign. So when it comes to these races that'll take place not only on the national scale and the presidential level, but also in the more statewide ones, we could look at Florida too, a major swing state. Governor DeSantis had a very high approval rating. It's since ticked down a little bit, but he's still overall above that 50% mark. Is this something that governors will run on their response or be held accountable for, such as in New York come election season?
I think politicians are going to be held accountable across the board, up and down. When you look at the House of Representatives, with the way Nancy Pelosi has politicized this issue and delayed aid to small businesses, or whether you look at what Governor Gavin Newsom has done in California, punishing those in Orange County and in Huntington Beach, closing down their beaches what really looks like a partisan political move there, what he's doing with their mail-in election and then only opening polling places in a Democrat area of the state for the special election there tomorrow in California, District 25, or Governor Whitmer in Michigan, her very arbitrary, draconian moves that are hurting a lot of residents in her state for no reason other than just arbitrary paragraphs. You see that in Pennsylvania as well with Governor Wolf threatening businesses with their liquor license if they defy his order, when a lot of parts of his state do not have the problem and a big outbreak there. So I think all across the board, people are waking up to really bad decisions from Democrats, whether it's governors, mayors, or whether it's representatives in the House. And people will hold them accountable come November.
And even when it comes to Governor Whitmer and Governor Wolf that you were just saying right there, those are two other governors who followed that policy that we were talking about regarding New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. The idea that you have to accept, I should say, COVID patients into nursing homes. And I hope that they learn from these mistakes too, because this is a policy failure that is quite literally resulting in death. So I hope they learn from this sooner rather than later. Liz Harrington, always appreciate you coming on. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks for having me.